Have you ever wondered why medieval art is so cartoonish? The reason for medieval art's exaggerated and cartoonish look isn't due to unskilled artists, but rather surprisingly, religion. See, medieval art spans from the 5th century to the 15th century, a period in which Christianity became the dominant religion in Europe, which led to artists prioritizing symbolism over realism. Their main goal was to convey religious and moral messages instead of accurately depicting the real world. This also meant that they considered classical art, which typically went for realism, immoral and abandoned most of the techniques linked to it, including shading, modeling, and perspectives. On top of all of that, most people couldn't read at the time, so clear and simple images were essential to teach religious stories and moral lessons. So, while it might look cartoonish to us today, medieval art was all about conveying clear religious messages in a way anyone could understand. These are the two most terrifying instruments in history. But why? The Aztec death whistle is an eerie skull-shaped instrument used by the Aztecs in the 14th century. It was typically made with bone or clay and produced a terrifying high-pitched sound that closely resembles a human scream. It is believed to have been employed in warfare to intimidate and disorient the enemy. They were also used in rituals and ceremonies relating to the afterlife. The carnix was a war horn used by the Celts in 200 BC. Its design featured an elongated S-shaped bronze horn ending in a boar or dragon's head. This horn produced a deep, resonant sound used to signal attacks, coordinate movements, and intimidate enemies in battle.
Photos, then versus now. Elsie Alcock, a woman who has lived in the same house for 104 years, the entire span of her life. Visitors in the Metropolitan Museum of Art viewing the same painting over 100 years apart, 1910 versus 2019. The development of land in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, 1985 versus 2016. The 5,000-year-old arrangement of stones names Stonehenge, 1877 versus 2019. The Shambles in York. This street was the inspiration for Diagon Alley from Harry Potter. Late 1800s versus today. American soldier of the 5th Infantry Division in Normandy, France, versus a tourist, 1944 versus 2020. Church St. Martin in Cologne, Germany, 1946 versus 2021.
Who is the richest person in history? Many people will think Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, but you will be surprised to learn the richest person ever born was Mansa Musa, who was a 9th Mansa, which means king, of Mali, and was alive in the 14th century. How did Mansa Musa accumulate his immense wealth? His fortune was largely forged through strategic expansion of trade routes across the Sahara, coupled with the astute management and exploitation of the vast salt and gold reserves within his empire. When Mansa Musa went on a pilgrimage, his stop in Egypt caused an issue for its economy. Arab writers from the time said he traveled with tens of thousands of people and dozens of camels, each carrying 136 kilograms of gold. His caravan spent and gave away so much gold that the overall value of gold decreased in Egypt for the next 12 years. Stories of his immense wealth even reached Europe when Spanish cartographers showed West Africa with a depiction of Mansa Musa sitting on a gold throne, holding a gold nugget in one hand, a golden staff in the other. Mansa Musa died in 1337 and was succeeded by his sons. Unfortunately, the empire fell apart, not too long after his death. Although the true extent of his wealth is unknown, his estimated wealth adjusted for inflation was $400 billion.
The world's reaction to Queen Elizabeth's death.
She's the only constant we've all had in our lives.
I'm just one queen.
She's the person we've always looked up to. So, it's a sad day.
The sense of loyalty that she and her family had during the Second World War. You know, they could easily have left London or even left the UK totally, and they didn't. It speaks to character.
Sorry.
It was everything to us, and it was a massive part of our
In
upbringing.
Hong Kong, where the balance of British identity and Chinese authority is shifting, they remembered their sovereign and the crown she represented.
Thousands of people have gathered outside Balmoral, Buckingham Palace and Windsor to remember the Queen, many in tears.
Around the world, sometimes despite history, but so often because of it, she was for so many the focal figure. She was unifying just by being.
The worst deaths in history. Which one of these are the worst? Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, died after ingesting several pills of mercury, believing they would grant him eternal life. His tomb, guarded by the famous terracotta army, remains largely unexcavated due to concerns about preserving its contents and the potentially hazardous levels of mercury within. Edward II of England, after being deposed and imprisoned by his queen consort Isabella and her lover Roger Mortimer, was rumored to have been murdered by having a red-hot iron inserted up his rear side. Saint Lawrence of Rome was executed by roasting on a giant grill. Allegedly, his last words were, "Turn me over, I'm done on this side." Al-Mustasim, the last Abbasid Caliph of Baghdad, was executed by his Mongol captors by being rolled up in a rug and then trampled by horses. This method of execution was supposedly chosen to avoid shedding the blood of royal directly, in accordance with a Mongol superstition that spilling royal blood would bring bad luck.
The sound you are about to hear is the earliest voice recording in history, restored 5 times.
Have you seen someone with a bigger jaw than this? The Habsburg jaw, also known as mandibular prognathism, is a distinct physical condition characterized by a protruding lower jaw and often an underbite. This condition became particularly notable in the Habsburg dynasty, a royal family that ruled over much of Europe from the 15th to the 20th century. How did it get so bad for the Habsburg family? The answer is simple. Many generations of inbreeding. 9 out of the 11 total marriages that occurred among them during the 184 years they ruled Spain from 1516 to 1700 were incestuous. Even when the first Spanish Habsburg ruler, Charles V, arrived in Spain in 1516, he couldn't fully close his mouth due to his Habsburg jaw. This reportedly caused one bold peasant to shout at him, "Your Majesty, shut your mouth! The flies of this country are very insolent." In fact, modern researchers widely state the infamous Habsburg jaw deformity ultimately caused their downfall. The family's genetic line progressively deteriorated until Charles II, the final male heir, who was physically incapable of producing children, thus bringing an end to Habsburg rule in Spain.
The videos you are about to watch are the oldest recording in history and the earliest born person to ever be filmed in history. The Roundhay Garden Scene, 1888. Filmed by French inventor Louis Le Prince, this is believed to be the oldest surviving piece of film in history. It is a short, silent motion picture film, which lasts about 2.11 seconds and shows 4 people leisurely walking round the garden. The oldest born person to ever be filmed. Filmed in February 26, 1896, by a worker named Vittorio Calcina. It depicts Pope Leo XIII, visibly confused, repeatedly motioning apostolic blessings to the audience. Pope Leo XIII was born on the 2nd of March 1810, making him 86 in this video.
Interesting historical photos. Part 1. A protester, Guy Bermieux, encounters his childhood friend, policeman Jean-Yvon Antignac, on April 6, 1972. Traditional Rwandan hairstyle, 1923. Princeton sophomores after a brutal snowball fight, 1893. Young German soldier crying after being captured by U.S. forces in 1945. Reporters who exposed the Watergate scandal watch President Nixon resign, 1974. George Harrison of the Beatles taking a selfie at the Taj Mahal in 1966. Fred Howe, The Fat Man and George Moore, The Living Skeleton, 1890. Ruby Bridges, the first African-American to attend a white elementary school in the Deep South, 1960. Earliest known photo of Elvis Presley with parents Gladys and Ampie Vernon in 1938. Lunch atop a skyscraper, 1932. A man begging for his wife's forgiveness inside a divorce court, Chicago, circa 1948. Men celebrating the end of Prohibition, 1933. Follow 4 more.
Voices of famous figures you've never heard, Part 1.
All of you will be damned. There is no place in heaven for you. We can't have heaven crammed.
What do you think of the sound pictures of today?
What I think of the talking pictures?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I never heard of them.
In the last moment of dinner, not clean my finger.
Yes.
Only put a little in my mustache. Remain for all afternoon. Very efficient.
Instead of instruments to promote the general welfare, they have become the tools of corrupt interests which use them impartially to serve their selfish purposes. The high... дорогое народе, нашего державного вождя, государя...